Time for the market report. Row crops once again the biggest movers.
Not a big surprise, Mike. A good bit going on in row crops right now, and we'll get into that. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then this year's prospective plantings report finally released. What did it say? And finally, we speak with MSU Extension economist Dr. Will Maples about the report and what's moving the markets. So, markets closed the week mostly green, row crops mostly up, while livestock down. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, soybean oil, up over 3 cents, an over 7.5% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, wheat, down 30 cents, a near 5.5% decrease from the previous week. This year's prospective plantings report dropped, and well, it didn't say anything shocking. In short, corn acres up, all other row crops down. Bella Bingham has the details.
Corn planted for all purposes, that includes food, feed, or industrial uses like ethanol, estimated to be about 95 million acres, which is up 5% or about 5 million acres from last year. Soybean acreage, as predicted, down 4% from last year. That amounts to about 83.5 million acres. In the 29 highest soybean producing states, 23 of those have the same or lower acreage. Wheat acreage down 2% compared to last year, which amounts to about 45.5 million acres, the second lowest acreage since 1919. How does that add up? Winter wheat acreage about 33 million, spring wheat about 10 million. Cotton acreage also down by 12%, adding up to nearly 10 million acres. Of that, upland cotton area is estimated about 10 million acres, and American Pima cotton area 157,000 acres.
Now you have the context. What did the report really tell us? I spoke with MSU Extension row crop economist Will Maples to get his take, and he characterizes it as no big surprise. Those in the ag industry already knew what was coming.
It was a little interesting. This corn number did come in higher, a little bit higher than USD had forecasted back in February. 95.3 million acres of corn is going to be a lot of corn out there this year. And that's going to weigh down on the market some. I mean, we expected to see this big number, so the initial market reaction to it might not be that bad because we expected it. And then on the soybean side, though, seeing a cut in acres, maybe that finally will give a little bit of boost to that market as it looks like lower supplies.
So does it look like corn is maybe in the long run going to outdo soybeans as the #1 row crop in the state?
Nope, not even close. We're still planting over 2 million acres of soybeans in Mississippi, 609,000 acres of corn. Corn's got a lot of ground to make up on soybeans here in Mississippi. Corn's going to have to really get to an even more profitable standpoint going forward to really ever take over soybeans.
Looks like good news for bean growers. I did see an interesting stat here in the report that it said that winter wheat acreage is the second lowest it's been since the early 1900s, somewhere around 1911.
Yeah, so, wheat prices have come down. Think back a few years ago, Ukraine-Russian war first started. We saw really volatile wheat prices, really high wheat prices through that time. It caused a lot of interest with wheat. So here even in Mississippi, we saw an increase in wheat acres. We think like 2 years ago, we planted like 120,000 acres of wheat here in the state. And now this year, we're projected to plant 60,000. Just because we've seen those prices come back down, that market is not as volatile, as high as it was, as that global situation's kind of leveled out.
Speaking of global politics, so the upcoming tariffs, what exactly do we think these are going to do to prices in the short term and potentially in the long term?
Yeah, so, we're talking about the acres, what supply is looking right now, but that demand piece is just as important. These future tariffs coming up, unfortunately, it's looking like ag's going to be collateral damage in a lot of these tariffs, especially with China. China is our biggest buyer of soybeans. I mean, we're shipping a majority of our soybeans to China. Tariff impacts, they're going to hit us back to retaliatory tariffs on our soybeans, which unfortunately, as we saw in 2018, will lower prices. You think about our cotton crop. Cotton right now has already got low prices. Further demand issues there will be a negative to our cotton producers. Mexico is one of our biggest buyers of corn, is our biggest buyer of corn. Trade war with them, they're going to retaliate on U.S. corn. So unfortunately, in short term, ag more than likely will take a hit depending on the magnitude of the tariffs, what kind of retaliation other countries give us. Long term, it's kind of just a wait and see. Just how does these other countries respond? At the end of the day, what kind of trade negotiations get worked out will really determine long term what these impacts will be.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Looks like it's going to be a corn-heavy year while soybeans and cotton losing ground. Literally. Time will tell how the markets will respond.